Hang on a second. Kind of an all-inclusive TED Talk is what we try to end with. Now, when I was talking to my chair, I said, you know, the only thing better than a professor ending with a TED Talk is having the students end with a TED Talk. That solves two problems. It lets me do some talking, but more importantly, it lets you do some typing or talking as well. What I'd like to do is dedicate today's lecture to the following premise. How many of y'all have seen this quote before? Let me get it up on screen. Hang on, because this is twitchy technology sometimes. Still waiting for next screen. There we go. How many have seen this quote before? If you haven't, be sure you mute your mic. Interesting. I can tell Wayne Gretzky is starting to fall back into people's memories and kind of going out of history here. Wayne Gretzky was a hockey player back in the 80s. Well, actually in the 90s, it's more appropriate. And he's the leader in goals scored and all that stuff. Oh, Sam. Okay, so Sam does know Wayne Gretzky. That's good. It does me a heart proud that somebody knows who I'm talking about. But one of the things he said that is applicable to what we're going to talk about today is that a really great hockey player goes to where the puck is going to be. They don't pay as much attention to where it happens to be. And as a business leader, you're going to find yourself, especially with technology and ERP systems, you're going to find yourself needing to anticipate where things are going. How you're going to get access to that information, how you're going to learn where things are going, is up for debate. There's a number of different ways you can stay abreast of different stuff. But by a large margin, if you're going to have a business that's going to do very well in the marketplace, you're going to have to anticipate where things are going. You're not going to be able to react to where things just arrived. We see this example over and over again with a lot of companies that were very slow to adopt new or to anticipate new. And that's one of the things we're going to try to address today, especially in the context of an ERP system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the class over to you. And what I want to do is, let me get my screen shared properly here. Hang on, because it takes a minute for this to work. Particularly slow this morning. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to turn this over to you. So what I would like is for individuals to tell me what they think is going to be a big trend over the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years, over the next 10 to 20 years, over the next 20 to 30 years, and then the broad category of beyond. In other words, going well beyond the immediate, right? Once you get outside of 30 years, you're starting to get into an area that's much further out. So without further ado, why don't we start with Abraham. Abraham, do you mind piping on and give me a prediction of the future?
Sure. I think in 5 to 10 years, we'll see cloud computing become really widestream. I know it's getting bigger right now, but I think cloud computing will be, every device we use.
Well, it's definitely here now. We definitely
Mhm.
obviously have cloud computing. What you're saying is it's going to explode from here and become more prevalent.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be like everything, everything.
Okay. You think the hard drive might be not long for this world?
Yeah, I really don't think the hard drive is going to stick around. I don't think the octa-core processors are really going to be necessary anymore. It's all going to be about that internet connection.
Okay. Hey, that's a pretty good prediction. We'll start talking about ramifications of this later. Thank you, Abraham. Continuing
Cool.
alphabetically, but maybe not for long. Alicia DeWitt.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, tell me the future.
Um, well, I don't know. I'm really into Hawaii Five-0 and what they're doing right now, and I don't know if it's totally,
Tell us what they're doing.
well, what's totally accurate or current right now, but they use a lot of Windows products. I know that's a big advertisement stuff, but they're able to touch it to the computer and then send it somewhere else, or touch it to like a Surface area or Surface top. Like that's a whole computer. So I think technology is going to be everywhere. Like there's going to be a lot of touch screen and everything. It's kind of like the Internet of Things is happening.
Okay.
And that if we can see it on our phone, we can see it kind of everywhere and attach it to all the screens. I don't know if I'm making much
Well,
sense,
no, it's
but
okay. Hey, it's early in the morning. We're all kind of still struggling. So
yeah.
you think a big acceleration of the Internet of Things?
Yeah, a huge, like it's going to be everywhere.
Okay. Okay. Hey, thanks. I appreciate you piping in, Alicia.
Thanks.
Angel, I want to hear from you, and that'll finish our A's.
Um, so in 5 to 10 years,
It can be farther out.
I don't know about
It doesn't have to
years,
be.
but I'm
It can be.
ready for it.
Can you hear me? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be 5 to 10. We just happen to have captured a couple of 5 to 10s. It can be farther out.
Okay, I just want to say this. I'm ready for jetpacks. That's just one thing that I'm
You
ready
ready
for.
for a
But
jetpack?
I think yes. Who's gonna,
You think a
start that up? But
you think a flying car will arrive first, or you think a jetpack will arrive first?
I feel like a jetpack's gonna come first because they already in. We see them in movies a lot. They're in motion. I feel like someone has one. Someone in the world.
Okay. Okay.
But
Hey, I
yeah. It, I think there will be a lot of development of more robots, a lot of less human activity. Computers will start doing
okay.
that we do now.
Interesting prediction. It's funny you don't hear too much of the jetpack thing anymore. It's kind of funny that you just don't hear that. You don't hear as much of the jetpack thing anymore, which I find that to be interesting. Let me hop around. Thank you. I appreciate you hopping on, Angel. Let's go back. Let's go crazy here. Let's go to Zachary. That's the extreme opposite. Zachary Williams, can you pipe in?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sure, perfectly. Hit me. What's the future hold?
Okay, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to start seeing some biological identifiers with all the security issues we're having, fingerprint scanning, iris scanning, things like that, just to really verify the user. I think in 10 to 20 years, we're going to have some artificial intelligence that's smarter than a human,
Ooh.
that's closer to the 20-year mark, and then 30 plus years in the future, I think the singularity is going to happen. Watched a lot of TED Talks on that. Ultimately, at some point, the artificial intelligence is just going to be so smart that it's just gonna go and run.
I am glad I have you on the line, Zachary, because you sound like the kind of person that I need to ask this.
Okay.
When people say that a car travels faster than a human, does that disturb humans?
No, it depends on who I talk to about that.
But you think there's people
If
that really feel that, you think there's people out there that believe people can go faster than cars?
Oh
Yeah, that's
no.
what I mean. When you tell
Oh,
Usain Bolt, I've got a car that can go faster than you, do you think Usain Bolt is insulted by that?
he shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be, right?
Right.
What about when people say nuclear submarines swim better than human swimmers? Does that upset human swimmers?
It shouldn't upset them
It
either.
shouldn't
No.
upset them. So what's different? Why is it that more people are disturbed when you say that a computer uh, can act just like a human and potentially replace you?
Well, it's scary. For me, the, sure they can do all the things that humans will be able to do at some point, but ultimately they're going to lack the humanity
Ah,
that every person has. They don't have a mother or a father or a brother or a sister like everyone else, but these machines have all the capabilities that we do. So that's scary to me.
if I can go Walking Dead on you here, if I take a machete and lop off your arm, are you still here with us?
Yes, I
What
am.
about your leg? What if in a car accident you lose your leg?
Still here,
What
just hobbling
what
along.
happens if half your brain is lobotomized? Are you still here with us?
That's a that's a pretty deep philosophical question, I think.
Yeah, and this is the kind of difficult things that we're going to start encountering. When I start doing my side of the lecture, I'll present some different things, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I think the brain, it has kind of been held out as something extra special, and it doesn't
Hmm.
comfort people when you tell them, well, but the human brain has designed and devised advanced computers, so that means the human brain retains some kind of special status in the world. I don't think that comforts people a whole lot because they're unsettled by the brain. The whole brain thing. Have you noticed that when somebody catches the flu, it doesn't really disturb people that much? It's like, it's considered a physical ailment, right?
Hmm.
When somebody has, you know, I'll go even as far as to say when somebody has a physical disease, I think most people around the world accept that as well. That could have happened to anyone, right? What
Hmm.
about mental illness? Does mental illness hold a special place to where it kind of freaks people out?
It certainly holds a stigma. Depending on who you'll talk to, some people will say, "Oh, this person's depressed. They should just be able to snap out of it." Or other people will say, "Oh, that's a disease. It's a chemical process that needs treatment." So there's people that are on both sides of that coin.
Yeah, I think when somebody says, "I've got something wrong with my shoulder, I can't raise it any higher than my head," people just kind of yawn, right? But
Hmm.
if you see somebody like in a mental institution and they're like walking in a circle and they do it for 3 or 4 hours in a row, that disturbs people. That disturbs people more than physical ailments. Uh, where I'm going with this is there is something about the mental that plays a role, starts playing a role. And I think as machines get closer and closer to mental functions, I think we're going to see more and more people disturbed by this. Uh, but anyway, we'll leave it open. And at this point, we're going to just assume the world is open and maybe closed. Oh yeah, that's right, Ex Machina. I saw that about a week ago. We'll actually have a clip from Ex Machina today. Zara, can you pipe in for us?
Good
Good
morning.
morning. How are you today?
I'm good, having coffee. How are
Cool,
you?
really good. Brian Carmona, I want to make this three at a time. Can you hop on, please?
Good morning.
Good morning. So all three of us are on. I want you to tell me, Zara and Brian, what's coming. Somebody first.
I'm sorry. What was the question
What's
again?
coming? What's coming in the future? If you look at the screen, I have 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and more than 30 years out.
I mean, I guess I just kind of want to jump on the AI
That's cool.
bandwagon
You can
because I
expand
think,
on what we've had.
yeah, I think definitely as, computers are, I guess they get smarter, and they're slowly starting to replace the things that we do, the things that can be automated. So I think that that's just going to be a really big push.
Okay, Brian, we're all ears.
Yeah, I like to add, it looks like we're advancing on the 3D printing thing. So in the future, I mean, we won't even have to leave our house to get the things we want. We could just have that 3D printing alternative to get the things we want.
You think we'll be able to print food?
Maybe. I believe they're already working on something like that, but you know, at this point, the possibilities are really endless. What we once thought was not conceivable, it's looking more possible. So I think in the future we might be able to print food.
Do you know how to start a fire with 2 sticks?
No, I know you gotta rub them together, but past that, I'm really not
Do you
sure.
think you could do it?
Maybe.
What do you think?
I could give it a
What do
try.
you think, Zara? Could you start a fire with 2 sticks?
I mean, I think if I had no other alternative, then yeah, I could definitely figure it out.
Do you think we're better at starting fires with sticks today or 500 years ago?
Today.
Oh, 500 years ago, because that was a necessity. I mean, you have
Maybe
to,
the
right?
difference between life and death on a cold night?
Yeah.
There was an episode, I don't mean to beat y'all down with old Star Trek episodes, but there was an episode of Star Trek where the Enterprise had this technology called replicators. So they didn't cook. In other words, there was no need to cook. The replicators would create the food, at the atomic level. And when you would, for any of you that are fans of the show, Captain Picard would famously say Earl Grey hot, and a cup would appear with Earl Grey hot at the temperature that he had configured. So anyway, long story short, in this episode, the replicators went down. The whole network of replicators went down. And it was interesting to me to see people look at each other and say, does anybody know how to cook? Has anybody ever cooked before? And apparently it had been like 250 years since anybody had cooked anything. They were fortunate that there was an alien on board the Enterprise who remembered his great-grandmother cooking. So he had a vague idea of how you cooked, and it had something to do with heat and getting food onto some kind of hot surface. I just thought that's interesting because it makes you wonder what kinds of things like that will become harder and harder to do in the future. I know it would be very difficult for me to do my research without the internet. I've become very, very used to using it. So there's always the counter argument of how overly reliant do you become on this technology. I could see, following on Zara's comment about artificial intelligence, I could see a situation where if one of these networks of AI went down, people could be really, really lost. Has anyone been at a fast food place where the registers went down and no one could make change?
I mean, you see where the credit card machines go down all the time, and so, they have where you can only pay with cash right now. I've seen that.
Right. That's kind of I guess a counter technological argument of if people are completely lost without it, is that good? Is that bad? Or is that just something you accept? I did not watch this show, so I can't speak to it, but I understand that the show Revolution or something like that, wasn't that the one where the power went down completely?
I have no
There was some
idea.
show on TV where they lost power, and yeah, okay, so Sean's saying, yeah, the power went down, and it happened. I thought it was interesting. There was a survey I saw recently in the New York Times that men were asked, what would you rather lose for good? In other words, what would be your choice to lose for good? Your smartphone or your wallet? And it was interesting that a majority of the people felt it was less of a hassle to lose their wallet than it was to lose their smartphone. And you can imagine what will happen when you pay with your smartphone. If you pay with your smartphone, then I don't know if wallets will even survive. So I find that to be interesting. Hey, Zara and Brian, I appreciate you piping in.
No problem.
Let's see who else can get lucky this morning. Riggers, do you have a microphone this morning?
Yes.
Well, let me get somebody else too on. Sam, can you hop on with us? Sam Kellogg.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, gentlemen, tell me the future.
Well, I think in about 5 to 10 years, elaborate a little on 3D printing. I think that's going to start being more common. People making those, small, like phone cases. I know they have them. They have 3D printing at Willis Library now, and I think it's going to be more common, just the everyday stuff instead of going out and buying just those small stuff. And then also in about 10 to 20 years, driverless cars will be more frequent. I think those are going to be big. And then maybe, drones, maybe they'll become a little cheaper. Maybe we'd all get our own drones in about 20, 30 years.
Do you know you can rent? Did you know you can rent a drone for about $40 an hour?
No, I
A
didn't.
serious one. We're not, because a lot of them are kind of
That's
play
cool.
ones. A lot of them are just kind of play drones. They're not really for serious photography and stuff. I looked into it because I was going to do some drone videoing for the College of Education. I thought it was interesting that you can get a high quality, pretty high grade quality drone for about $40 an hour.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Sam,
Going with electric cars, I think in 5 to 10 years we could see those being a lot more prevalent. And maybe 10 to 20 years we could even see highways be able to charge the electric cars so we can go a lot farther.
well, yeah, I think there's a bigger, kind of a broader category just across the board of batteries. Batteries are going to have to get better. Now, the good news is we have more people working on the problem now than have ever worked on it in history. Because I always hear these stories of the 1920s and how they had electric cars and they abandoned it and all this stuff. Suffice it to say, we have a lot more scientists working on it today than have ever worked on it before, and that's something that's going to obviously have a big effect on this. We're not going to just work in isolation and not know of it. That's true. Sam brings up the point that the disposal of batteries is something that's a big issue, especially with environmentalists. I will bring up, while we're talking about batteries, I will bring up something that has come up, which I think is interesting, especially from a sustainability and environmental perspective. You two gentlemen, do you think that there are places in North America that you can't live because they won't run electrical lines out there? Hello?
Not that I can think of.
Remoteness. Aren't there places that are so remote that humans don't live because they don't run electrical lines out there?
Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, there's
know.
places, right? Yosemite, the areas that are really, really remote, that some people would live if they could have power. One of the fears that environmentalists have with battery technology is that, let's say, for example, you were able to combine, Sean, it's true, some people would live on mountaintops or very close to mountaintops. If you were able to combine solar power with highly advanced batteries, you could live without electrical lines. And a lot of environmentalists are really concerned about this. They don't want a situation where overnight there's a huge revolution in battery technology. Now everybody wants to build a house in the middle of absolute nowhere. Yellowstone, I mean, places like Yellowstone, places like this, their fear is that the only thing that keeps wildlife with any kind of habitat is the fact that the remoteness keeps humans out of it. Their concern is that if that remoteness is no longer an obstacle, then people in droves and millions will move into these remote areas and start removing any last remaining habitat that exists for animals. What do y'all think about that? Hello? What do y'all think about that? Y'all think that's something to be big time concerned about, or nah, not that much?
Yeah, I think it's concerning. It's scary. I mean, everyone being spread out in different corners of the world, just because, and then it can cause a lot of damage with the battery consumption, and then
Okay. Okay.
How they're going to recycle that.
Okay. Well, anyway, there's other angles to the battery thing, and not all of them are positive, positive, positive. Some people are concerned that it'll greatly propagate human habitats throughout the world, and that'll eliminate the end of any places that animals can live. So anyway, that's the other side of highly efficient batteries. Thank you, gentlemen, for piping in.
Thank you.
Let's listen
Thank you.
to Ms. Leslie Burks. Leslie, do you have a microphone this morning?
Maybe. Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you perfectly. Why don't we have Travis McCullough join us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Travis and Leslie, what's coming?
Go ahead, Travis.
I see in the next 5 to 10 years, wearable technology either being made or broken.
All right.
I saw
think
contact lenses with little computer screens in them and all that jazz.
All that jazz. I like that. What do you think, Leslie?
and I would go even further in 20 to 30 years, technology that we don't just wear, but is part of us.
Do we kind of have a little bit of that going on right now?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we kind of have a little bit of that going on right now. Anyone who's wearing an insulin pump, anything like that.
Pacemaker.
Yeah, and there's one of the things that's starting to happen in this space of human parts replacement is it's starting to really, really change the medical profession. In the medical profession, let's say that before I had a pain in my chest, right, and I go to the emergency room. What's starting to happen to some people already is that when they have a pain in their chest and they go to the emergency room, quickly the assessment is made that what's wrong is the implantable, programmable pacemaker is malfunctioning. Are doctors like computer engineers?
They certainly didn't start being trained that
No,
way.
they really didn't. They didn't really sign up for I start diagnosing remotely through wireless equipment what's wrong with your wearable or implanted device. It's not. It also doesn't take too much imagination to think that artificial hearts, would improve and get more compact and be completely inside the chest. And that type of technology being merged with with biology is something that's concerning because it's going to drastically change the medical profession. Up until this point, some of these hospitals have already had to have some technicians or people that know how to diagnose what's going wrong with an insulin pump or what's going wrong with a pacemaker, so that when people do show up, they can at least stabilize them. They, at least get them, in some way to stop the malfunctioning technology. And that's something that is starting to become more and more of a deal. Do you suppose that this implantable equipment, when you go to the hospital, do you suppose in the future it might interface and start talking to the ERP system the hospital's running?
Oh, yes.
Okay, and the ERP system that the hospital is running might be networked with hospitals across the nation?
And everywhere else, who knows?
Yeah, so in theory, you may never in the future go into a hospital and have to tell them anything about your medical history because your devices may communicate with the hospital equipment and then globally find all your information about blood type and what procedures you've had done and instantly communicate it to a doctor. Would that potentially save healthcare dollars?
Sure.
Cool. What's the downside?
Probably privacy, security,
Yeah.
and getting it hacked and people doing bad things.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to write that next great American action novel, you might write the one about the president and how her implanted pacemaker is, that some baddie is able to basically kill the president remotely by turning off their pacemaker or causing it to malfunction. And that's the
Right.
kind of stuff that, believe it or not, the Secret Service has started to become concerned about as to how they're going to protect individuals who have implanted type stuff. It's not that science fiction-y, right? Hey, thank y'all. I appreciate Travis and Leslie. I appreciate y'all piping in.
Thanks.
No problem.
All right. 2 more, and then we'll start official lecture here. Michael Powell, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, let's get you a buddy right quick here. Kelsey, do you have a microphone this morning? Okay. Well, Kelsey, since you don't have a mic, I'll let you go first. What's coming? Hybrid cars? That's interesting. What do you think, Michael? What's coming?
I would say with the Internet of Things and all that stuff, all the data that we will be able to collect through all that will actually be able to help us make a lot more predictions in the future and say all sorts of different things from, well, I mean, we have so much data right now, if we could use it all or utilize it, we could make predictions in stock markets to almost anything in the future. So actually being able to utilize all the data that's coming in. Like figuring out a way for it. Maybe that'll be how AI could actually help us do all that. But I think that's one of the bigger things is actually being able to utilize the data to make predictions.
Okay, yeah, in other words, getting better and better at predictions. There is a book called Foundation written by Isaac Asimov. And in the future, what he foresees is there's a branch of science called histrionics. And histrionics is the combination of the study of history and the study of high order mathematics, like statistics. Anyway, histrionics, one of his characters, when he dies in Foundation, he studies histrionics and writes on it. And what he does is he puts a series of videos that are going to be opened every 10 years. And the videos, when they're played, are his predictions about the future. In other words, his predictions about what's happening now 10 years after my death, 20 years after my death, 30 years after my death. And it's uncanny how closely the mathematical modeling was able to predict what was happening. And that's the whole gist of that book. The whole gist of the book is how it was able to predict, how he was able to combine statistics and history to predict the future. Thank y'all. Thank you for piping in. I appreciate it. Oh, eventually. Okay.
Can I add something?
Sure, by all means. Anyone who wants to add in, go ahead.
All right. I just saw a couple of comments about 3D printing and cloning. I wanted to expand on 3D printing and cloning. You can actually print food and even human organs. It does exist. The problem, though, that scientists face is that there's no life form to it. Like they can actually create entire creatures, like they can recreate an animal, but there's like one last thing that they can't figure out, and that's to give it breath of life. And you can actually clone humans today, but it's just illegal. But the ability does exist.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. That just because you bring something into existence physically, that doesn't mean you bring things into existence with a higher qualitative existence, right? I don't think anyone thinks of a robot dog as the same thing as a dog. I don't think anybody would think of a robot human as being human, at least until the point where it could trick someone into thinking that it was real. So I've had some really good comments here in the chat. I appreciate that.
Well, they actually use actual cells.
Yeah.
Like it's not really that they're creating a robot, but they can't make it come to life. They don't know how to make it come alive.
Yeah, part of the problem with that we're having is we don't know what life means. We're not exactly sure. We can't put a really good definition on what alive means. Things can appear to be alive, and yet by the definitions that we tend to have, they aren't. I mean, obviously, this starts devolving into discussions of philosophy and spirituality and stuff. So, that's the thing. We don't know. Part of the reason that we have trouble is because we don't know what the definition of consciousness is. When we say something is conscious and self-aware and stuff like that, we're not exactly sure what that is, so it's difficult to recreate something that we're not sure what it is. But no, that's a good point. That's a good point, that a lot of this stuff, especially the 3D printing, is becoming more and more common. Holly has a comment about implants, and it's kind of funny because implants, if they implant everything, right? If you're looking at 30 plus years out and they're able to implant basically every single sense organ, in theory you could have perfect vision and perfect hearing and perfect everything up until the point that your body broke down, and that would greatly change. That would greatly change the perception that people have of old age. If you were able to hear and see and walk and get around the same as someone who's 19. I have not seen Chappie. I have seen her, and I've seen Ex Machina. Let's go ahead and launch off. I appreciate everybody's feedback this morning. Let's launch off into what some experts believe is coming. So I think we have some excellent captures. I'll go ahead and save those and put them to Blackboard. But let's go ahead and see what some experts believe is coming down the pike. So we'll get ourselves orientated here. And I will waiting for next screen. Okay, so let's pick up here. Couple of things about artificial intelligence, because we're going to start seeing more and more talk of AI, and this slide deck is out on Blackboard, by the way. We're going to see more and more conversations about AI, and it's going to make some people uncomfortable. I have to say I don't have 1,000% comfort with it myself. Part of the reason is these things are going to get a lot better at visual perception. One of the things that humans have traditionally done very, very well, to the exclusion of machines, is they pick up on visual cues much faster. So for example, you'll notice when somebody says that they're happy, a lot of times you can look at their body language and you can look at their facial expression and know that they're just, basically lying. Machines are going to get better and better at doing this. They're going to get better and better at perceiving whether someone is ill just based on the pattern in which they walk around the house. The ability to see that there's something wrong with someone or something right or happy or whatever, this visual perception is going to get more and more sophisticated. We already have, this has been a traditional area of weakness in machine language, but it's getting better and better, and it's getting more sophisticated. One of the things that is hoped that can be done with visual perception is authentication, that you can authenticate people instead of passwords. You could do facial recognition and know that it is who's in front of the machine. Speech recognition is going to get better and better. A lot of people are, most people are very, very familiar with Siri, and Siri is, well known. It's on Apple devices and stuff like that. People are not as familiar, though, with Nina. I'll put it up on chat here. Nina is kind of a Siri on steroids, and Nina is going to start being used in the ERP system that USAA Insurance runs. And Nina, at this point, Nina's goal is not to trick you into thinking that it's not a person. I mean, it's going to be obvious. It's going to tell you that it's a voice response system. But what happens with Nina is a lot of the people that have experienced it say it's very, very realistic. I believe if you go out to YouTube and stuff, you can hear some rudimentary conversations that individuals have with Nina, the operating system, and it's getting very sophisticated, the ability to recognize and understand speech. They're going to get better at decision making. Artificial intelligence is going to start getting better and better at decision making. I know somebody had mentioned about the Mars missions. And the Mars missions, a lot of the probes that we currently have on Mars are highly dependent on machines that can make decisions. Now, again, we start getting into some philosophical things here, right? We start getting into philosophical uh, uh, discussions about what does it mean to make a decision, right? How many of y'all have heard of the China room? The China room is a thought experiment that was put together by a computer scientist, and he was trying to prove it's an anti-physicality argument. Okay, I'll put that up here so you can see it. It's an anti-physicality argument. Basically, what it means is that it's not enough for a device or a person to be able to do something. They also have to understand that which they are doing. So it's not enough to just do it. For it to be conscious, it has to be aware that it's doing it. And the China room goes like this. You are someone who does not speak Mandarin, okay? But you are told we're going to give you a board and we're going to give you some instructions on how to orient Chinese symbols, Mandarin symbols, in a certain order. And when they're organized on that board and you staple them to that board, read in their entirety, they will constitute a joke. So the person who is an English speaker is given the symbols and they're given the map of how to put the symbols correctly on the board, and they staple them onto the board. And then they walk into the China room. And in the China room, there is an individual there from China. He holds up the board. The individual patiently reads the board and starts to laugh and starts to chuckle because he gets the joke. So the question for you is, if you're that individual who stapled the symbols to the board, walked into the China room and showed it to the Mandarin speaker, the question, and I'll pose it to everyone, is does that person know what is going on? Okay, very good. You can just type N. You don't have to hit NO, but that's good. And this is the China room argument, is that a computer will never really truly make a decision, right? A computer will never truly make a decision, whether it's a deterministic piece of software or non-deterministic. It can only do what it's told to do. In the China room, one of the arguments it makes is they'll never know what they're doing, because you have to have awareness about what you're doing to say you're truly doing something. Now, please don't trick yourself into thinking that that is the only argument that exists. There are individuals that strongly believe that the China room can be invalidated, that it's a faulty view of how decisions are made. You're going to see a lot more translation between languages. You will see that some of the rudimentary programs that Microsoft is working on. Microsoft seems to take a particular interest in this. And some of the programs that they're running can translate on the fly from one cell phone to another cell phone. And it's pretty creepy how effective it is. Again, a lot of these things, as you can well imagine, are linked, because speech recognition and translation between languages are things that are kind of intimately tied one to the other. Yeah, Google Translate, Tori, is out there and used. I used it for websites. Sometimes there'll be foreign websites, and Google Translate can translate them over. Hand in hand with decision making is with artificial intelligence, we're going to see the ability to handle unexpected scenarios better. It goes hand in hand a lot of times with the Mars missions. I know some of the rovers have had to be programmed to, at the very least, when they encounter something unexpected, to stop. To stop what they're doing and report back to the ground-based scientists on Earth and say, I've encountered something that I've never seen this before, and I don't know what to do. And that, by the way, that would be a very high point of achievement for humans. I'm sure many a time you've encountered something that was unexpected, and if you had stopped and done nothing, it might have been the best thing to do. Of course, the problem you have is that sometimes when you encounter something unexpected, the thing to do is to do something. And this is where you start getting into the difficulty of handling unexpected scenarios. We talked about 3D printing. there's a lot of talk that 3D printing is going to really accelerate. 3D printing has the ability, if you'll carefully remember, during the Industrial Revolution, the whole purpose of the Industrial Revolution was massification. I'm putting it up here so you can see it. The whole purpose of the Industrial Revolution was massification, the ability to make massive amounts of something on a large scale. What does it do when you're able to make something on a large scale? What are some of the effects of it? Let's see who pipes in. Let's see who wants a participation grade this morning. Very good. Yes. Very good. Yes. The Industrial Revolution brought on lower prices, and the ability to drop prices makes a big deal. None of us could afford our cell phones, our smartphones, if they were made, handcrafted one by one. The industry wouldn't even exist. So the Industrial Revolution was able to revolutionize this, and it created massification. Massification, basically, that General Motors or Toyota or Honda make red cars. And the red cars have some sway in them. I mean, you can sit there and change a few things. But for the most part, you're kind of stuck with a red car. You can't, for example, create a red, yellow, pink combination of a Honda Accord. At least you can't yet. You have to do that aftermarket. And one of the things that 3D printing is looking at doing is it's looking at ending massification. So you would be able to basically pick what you want, and it would be able to create it. The manufacturing process with its ERP system would actually respond to inputs from people on the outside who would authenticate that they have the funds to buy the device, to buy the car, and then they would be able to design their own car, and the manufacturing process would be flexible enough to where it could create a yellow, pink, and green car. I mean, whatever it is you want. So massification is something that's going to take a big hit with 3D printing, and it's going to bring in basically an era of personalization. Personalization is something that seems to be highly desired by individuals, marketplaces. Let me ask you this. Did y'all see last year, I think it was last fall, when the Coca-Cola people came out and were doing the personalized Cokes, the Coke cans, and they had personalized Cokes. Did anybody see that when it was on campus? Yeah, very cool, very cool. Did you notice that there was immense lines where people were lining up to have these devices, these cans with their names on them? Did you notice how big the lines were? So all of you are in the College of Business. As a future business participant, do you think that might be something to pay attention to, and notice how people are drawn to personalization? Yes, it's something to pay attention to in all industries, whether you're in the airline industry, whether you are a CPA practicing and have clients, you need to pay attention to the personalization movement. There's an enormous push towards people wanting stuff tailored and catered to just their unique deals. That's true, Riggers, very true. Everybody wants to feel special. And what's particularly true, Riggers, is that people are drawn to service providers who can make them feel special. And that is something that that has a big effect in the market. All right. Let me get back here. What about thoughts used to text and email? Do you think that's way out there, or you think that's in the next 10, 20 years? Well, I can tell you that right now, individuals who have paralysis can be hooked up to devices, and their thoughts, a lot of times their thoughts, their eye movements and stuff like that can start generating communication. And that's something that you can argue is 20 years out, 30 years out. But I think it's something that's you're going to face. If you're able to live a clean enough life, I think you're going to start seeing this invasion of your thoughts being able to manipulate the physical world. I'm not trying to go X-Men on here, Dr. Xavier or whatever, but I think it's something it's going to start becoming a deal. Think of the power of being able to select music by just thinking of it, and it's that kind of dynamic. Let's talk about this. We're going to watch this together, hopefully. Let me paste it here in the chat. Let's watch this and come back on the other side. I'm sorry. I realize now I was muted. Maricela, are you with us this morning? Do you have a microphone or only chat?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for piping in. That's what the microphones are for. Maricela, what do you think? You think we'll see something like this?
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm trying to. Excuse me?
Maricela?
Yes.
First, am I pronouncing your name right? Let's start with that.
Yes.
Okay. What do you think? You think we'll see a her operating system in our lifetime? Did you watch the video? Let's start with that.
I think. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird. I feel like we already like I guess we're avoiding like personal like communication or like just physical communication. Like to me that's just like we're continuing to separate even more. Like I don't know, this kind of relationship was kind of weird.
Have you seen the film or no?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Well, I recommend you see it. It won't be on the file or anything, but yeah, what an interesting, insightful comment on your part. That's really interesting. This thought that this will further isolate us.
I think so. I mean, it's just I feel like especially like in our generation, like it's we get I want to say like anxious or to even talk to each other or be in person. Like we just kind of want to we want to communicate and we want to like be in the know, but through these through machines or through other platforms, not face to face. And so I think that just I don't know, this will, yeah, like you said, just further our like relationships like with each other. I think. I don't know.
Interesting.
Just my
You think people might prefer a relationship like this to a human one?
I think I'm gonna say that I agree with that with one of the ladies that said that because people don't want to deal with like with difficult relationships or actually putting in work that they will I don't know that they rather would have those kinds of relationships. I guess something easier or I don't know. That's a hard question.
Are you familiar with Virtual Boyfriend?
No.
It is an app that you can load today, right now on your phone, and a couple of times a day your virtual boyfriend will text you, and you kind of have this, I don't know if you call it a relationship, but just kind of little fluffy things that make you feel good as you go through the day. And it's had a lot of downloads, and a lot of people are using it. What's up with that? What's in people's heads when they use that?
I don't know. I feel like it just goes back to I feel that we feel so we're so connected but feel so disconnected from everybody that I don't know, maybe that's what we think like would help us feel better about ourselves, I guess. Like that someone I don't know, that someone like cares or something. I don't know. That's pretty weird.
Here's the crux of the problem. Here's the crux of the problem as I see it. The crux of the problem is, are you inside your brain running a mechanical operating system?
No.
Okay, well that defines. See, the fact that the fact that you reject the physicality of computing answers the question, and that's if you believe that you're running a mechanical, yeah, Zachary says a chemical-based operating system, then at that point you start accepting this better. But if you say, no, there's something more. There's something more than just a biological operating system running here. There's something that's been imbued in the human experience that's unique to the human experience. Then you start recoiling at this and going, this is like some kind of perverse Frankenstein, right?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for... go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I was just saying in the future, like people will be more, I guess, like accepting to this. Like, I mean, it'll become more of a norm, like, talking to these computers. I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier, how these machines will, become more automated. They'll be, even bigger part of our lives. Maybe we'll just, accept it more, I guess.
Yeah, and another important thing is here, just because you and I are uncomfortable with it, that doesn't mean that a child born in 2030 will be uncomfortable with it. They may be very comfortable with it.
Yep, exactly. I agree.
So that's the thing. Our grandparents, they're like, I don't even want to use Facebook or something like that. And you can imagine something. I'm a firm believer that there's something coming in the future that will make us as uncomfortable as the internet makes our great grandparents. It's coming. We just haven't gotten there yet. Hey, I appreciate you piping in. You had some great comments. That was very thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Back to our presentation. Offices. You're familiar in wildlife. You're familiar with the endangered species list. Do you think offices are on the endangered species list? Interesting. We have some people that are no, maybe. Okay, I want one of my no people. I want one of my no people to pipe in and tell me why offices might be preserved somehow.
I said no.
Okay, hey.
What
do you think?
Okay.
I just think that there's a lot of stuff, even though, in the future there'll still be like, video conferencing and things like that. There's just a lot of stuff that you need to do in person, that human interaction. Plus, the whole idea of like removing the office requires, a lot of trust and monitoring and things like that. I think there was a story, I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, about Yahoo, like, going away from that style of like, working from home or whatever, because it wasn't working. But I think as a whole, I think the future will be hybrid. I think it'll be, I think the 9-to-5 work week is in danger, and I feel like the idea of going every day, so like going every weekday and going at certain hours it might be removed, but I still do think you need some sort of place to congregate, like in person.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you have a lot of people on your side. I think some people feel that like a handshake. I saw where Riggers said playing golf. That there might be some things that are still reserved for face-to-face. It'll just be interesting to see how fast physical location disappears. We're already starting to see some physical dislocation. I mean, wouldn't you agree that this morning we're engaging in physical dislocation? We obviously are, right? There was a researcher in this area that had I thought a pretty astute thing. Every time sometimes you hear stuff and you say, man, I wish I'd thought of that phrase. He said that we're heading towards a future where you're going to see more and more where people are alone but together. And this morning is kind of an example of that, right? We're all, for the most part, individually alone, but yet at the same time we're kind of together. So it's kind of an in-between kind of thing, right? And I think you're seeing more of that. But that's an interesting comment. I appreciate you adding it. It's interesting to hear that maybe there is some things that face-to-face can do that we can't reproduce digitally, at least not yet. Now, of course, holograms and stuff like that might start impacting this, but maybe there is something unique to physical co-location. Let's thank you. Appreciate you piping in. This is very, very right on the cusp. Inductive charging. Inductive charging is something that's really, really underneath our feet, and we're going to start seeing more and more of it. It's possible right now, but when you think about inductive charging, people don't go far enough, right? When they're thinking about smartphones. They're thinking about tablets and stuff like that. Oh, cool, Sean. Yeah, Lexus has it. That's very interesting that the NX already has some inductive charging. So this is something that's right underneath our feet. But what people are not thinking of is big. They're not thinking big. So, for example, a lot of this stuff is interrelated, and the driverless car, one of the thoughts that exists around the driverless car is that it will be able to draw its energy from the surface that it's rolling on. Okay, and then of course, we're talking about some serious capital redeployment that would have to happen. But we're not talking about, things that would have to be put 5 feet under concrete or anything like that. You could put actually a strip on top of the street and seal it in, and it would be able to basically charge the electric car as it rolls down the road. And this type of stuff is thought by some experts to be something that's coming down the pike. How about unbreakable phones? Is everybody, if you're ready for an unbreakable phone screen, please chat yes. I think everybody's ready. Look for this from, I think I have it misspelled, but Sapphire is, Apple has some devices coming out with sapphire glass, and the sapphire is pretty much unscratchable and unbreakable. Something else will break, but the screen won't break. And this is something that's going to affect, it's going to make, the reason I bring it up in an ERP course is a lot of your customers, they're going to be interacting with your ERP system and with multiple ERP systems across different companies. One of the things that's going to happen is these devices will just become a lot more durable. You'll be able to just throw them on tables and people will use them. Another thing that's coming in this unbreakable phone movement too is bendable phones, phones that can bend and flex. Samsung is a company that is very hot to trot on this. They're creating a lot of phones and tablets, especially the tablets are pretty amazing as to how much they will flex, and they're very thin, and they like that. They like the fact that you can bend it. I don't think they mean the iPhone 6 where it wasn't supposed to bend. Foldable tablets. I mentioned that a minute ago. We're starting to see more and more of that, and this might potentially be the beginnings of the replacement for paper. We might be seeing the beginnings of paper being replaced by devices that can be folded like paper. And virtual reality. A lot of people know about the Oculus Rift, so they're pretty tuned into Oculus Rift. What they're not necessarily tuned into is Morpheus. And Morpheus, I encourage you, if you have an interest in this area, to go out and look. It's, I believe, a Microsoft initiative, and they're able to do some pretty amazing stuff with virtual reality. There's a lot of industries that would potentially benefit from virtual reality. There is any kind of tourist type stuff, right? Anything where they're trying to show you places that you could potentially virtually go is very attractive. Keep in mind that right now, I think there would be a pretty big market for some virtual reality type system where you could travel in Greece. You could travel in the Caribbean. Again, it's not the same as being there, but there's a lot of people that are attracted to that. You already see this. That's true. Candace, apartment searches now with virtual reality. There's already some of this with, it's been coming for quite a few years. You'll notice that some of the travel shows are very popular on TV. And, some of those could be augmented and turned into super travel shows where you could actually follow an actual host around different sites. There's a lot of thought that this is going to enhance. If you end up working in the airline industry or in the travel industry or the hospitality industry, this might be something that greatly revolutionizes what's happening. Keep this in mind when it comes to virtual reality, okay? These types of things that we're talking about, no one really knows where they're going to go, okay? There's people that say they know they're going to go and what industries are going to impact. They really don't. Back, gosh, going on 2,000 years ago, when the Chinese invented paper, the manufacturing of paper, up until that point, people just wrote on plants, papyrus and stuff like that. When the Chinese invented paper and kind of spread it through the Silk Road to Western Europe and Eastern Europe, at the time paper was invented, people didn't know what full impacts and full deep changes were going to come as a result of paper. Paper was going to completely revolutionize science, completely revolutionize society, change culture. So what I'm saying is, just because we think virtual reality is going to be used for gaming now, that doesn't mean that's what it's going to end up being used for. We've talked about driverless car quite a bit, so I won't sit there and beat that to death. Quantum computing, the ability to compute almost at the molecular level, right, is something that's coming. Right now, the gap between transistors on current chipsets is about 50 atoms. And I type it so people can understand it. It's about 50 atoms. But there's thought processes that with quantum computing, we could bring it down even less than that. Right now, one of the problems they have with bringing it down lower than that is heat. Heat's always been a problem in computing. And as you get the transistors, the on-off switches closer and closer to each other, it's more and more difficult to dissipate heat. But it is coming, and quantum computers exist now. They're crazy expensive, just like once upon a time ENIAC was crazy expensive. Yes, atoms, down at the atomic level, Holly was asking. And what you basically are able to do with electrical charges, instead of having pulses of voltage or pulses of light communicating ones and zeros, what you have is the charge that the atom has defines whether it's a 1 or a 0. So if it has a negative charge, it's a 1. If it has a positive charge, it's a 0. And they're able to manipulate atoms at that level. The big advantage of quantum computing is it's much faster. And they do have quantum computers now. They're crazy expensive, just like ENIAC had. But as a business leader, you want to keep tabs on what's happening with that, because you would think at some point quantum computing QC will take off. All right. How about emotional attachment? How much? Well, I'll show you the video. We'll watch it together, and you tell me what your emotions are. Let me put it in the chat bar here. We'll come back on the other side. Okay, are we done? Okay, just making sure. Does this bug you? Somebody pipe in with their microphone and tell me if this bothers you.
I would say no, this doesn't bother.
It's crazy that I actually felt bad for something in my life.
Go ahead, we can all speak.
Yeah, it made me think of a real dog. That was kind of weird.
That is a robot dog, by the way, which I think adds to it, right? I mean, that's the robot dog from
I think the
Boston
fact
Dynamics.
that you said.
Go ahead.
I think the fact that you said it was a dog, like if you had said it was just a check this machine out, I don't think I would have felt as bad. But then when you said it was a robot dog, I don't know, something weird psychologically made me feel bad for it.
What if he had kicked over a refrigerator that was plugged in and working? Would that have disturbed you as much?
No, not at all.
Isn't that weird how it's starting to play with human psychology, right? It's starting to play with human psychology. We're going to start experiencing more of this. We're going to start experiencing this type of, and I think when I've showed this to other students, one of the things I said that really bugged them was how the robot dog tried to catch itself. You know, it tried to catch itself after it had been kicked, and I think they felt that was they could empathize with it because they felt like either emotionally or physically that had happened to them. So they're kind of transposing their life experience onto a device, something like that. This points to how we anthropomorphize technology, right? This is one of the reasons that cars have two headlamps instead of one long rectangular beam. We talk about robots that have arms. We talk about how fast does a car run? How fast is the car running? Well, cars don't run. Things like that don't exist. But this emotional attachment is something that's real. It's something that is difficult to ignore because it's something that is a reality, right? It's a reality. We can't do away with the way we feel about our humanness. Let's watch another video together. I'll post it here, and I'll see you all on the other side. Okay, what do you think? One of the things that Ava is trying to pass is something called the Turing Test. A Turing Test is something that you may encounter especially if you have voice recognition. And the theory of a Turing test is that a human would not be able to tell that they're talking to a machine. They would not be able to tell the difference. We already have examples of machines that can mimic, that can pass the Turing test. And the Turing test, what they're able to do is like with chess playing routines. Chess playing routines, uh, when people view a game of chess from overhead and it's disembodied, so they don't know which one is the human and which one is the machine, they can't tell the difference. They can't tell the difference between one and the other. Of course, that's a lot easier pass. That's an easier pass of the Turing test than actually having to talk. If you see the movie, if you have an interest in AI, I highly recommend it because it's very interesting how Ava is able to manipulate and how they manipulate Ava. What's interesting about the Turing test too is it's supposed to be a test of the technology, but if you pay close attention, the Turing test is actually a test of the human. It's a test of how a human decides what is human and what is not human. So I just think that's kind of interesting and something that's unfortunately or fortunately coming. What about drones? I'm going to let you watch this drone technology on its own. I'll let you watch this one on its own. I do want to show you this one though. So let me paste it in. Because people, when they talk about drones, they tend to think too small. So let's think kind of big. I'll see you on the other side. Okay. Would you believe me if I told you that there are people there are people that are seriously looking at this for business. A lot of the concern, or concern, I shouldn't say, a lot of the interest in this is that it could revolutionize distribution of materials. The ability to send, we tend to think small when it comes to drones. We tend to think about, Amazon delivering stuff from a warehouse, whatever. But one of the things that's being talked about or looked at is, could you actually deliver things from a flying warehouse? So could the warehouse actually be put into the sky and fly on some kind of constant basis? You could see applications of this in the military, where the military could have supplies, ammunition, whatever it happens to be, and it could be in some kind of circling pattern, and then these drones could take things off the C-130 or off this aircraft and actually deliver it where it's needed. This is something that's not completely science fiction. It's not out of the question that something like this could be done. What about DARPA? Does anybody remember what DARPA used to be? What the organization used to be? It's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. What did they used to be called? Yes, very good. They used to be called ARPA. So back in the 40s, if you had been paying attention to what ARPA was working on, you would have noticed, excuse me, in the 60s, you would have noticed that ARPA was working on the internet, okay? And a lot of people at the time would not have suspected that what ARPA was working on was going to revolutionize business. So let's look at what ARPA is working on now in 2015. Now I'll see you on the other side. Okay, let's hop back on. Can anyone think of an application for something like that DARPA horse, for lack of a better word? Yeah, I guess, Sean, if it's going to do recon, it's going to have to be a lot quieter than this. It's going to have to be a lot quieter than this. Let's finish. I want to finish with one last video. We'll watch it together, and then we'll discuss, and then we'll call it a day. I will be posting some asynchronous content that's not related to this morning's synchronous content, so be on the lookout for that. But that'll conclude this morning. Let's watch this one together. I'll see you on the other side. Okay. I have left you with one more video. The video is on Blackboard Announcements, so be sure and watch it. It's a vision of what 2020 is thought to be for a couple of technology companies. It's kind of an expansion of the video you just saw. A lot of you saw that video in 4100. The one that I just posted to Blackboard Announcements is an expansion of one you probably have not seen. Does anybody have any questions before we sign off for the day? Okay, Saba, do you have a microphone or do you have to chat?
No, I can talk.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question about the video that we had to watch that was with Chapter 11, and it included all that App Sentry information. Do we need to know that for the exam, specifically the App Sentry part and like what they offer? I don't know if you can tell me that, but
tell me again the video you're talking about. Are you talking about the one for
business intelligence? Oh, I wish I had the name. Sorry.
Are you talking about Salesforce.com or something else?
No, something else where sorry, just trying to find the Oracle weakness video, like
yes. I want you to focus. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, I want you to focus. Don't worry, it's a 50-minute presentation, so it's kind of long. But what I definitely want you to focus on is the weaknesses. The weaknesses that Oracle has, the Oracle ERP solution. You notice that if you watched it, the consultants analyze and talk about the weaknesses of Oracle. You will also notice that I echoed some of those in the slides. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I want you to focus on. I don't want you to focus on some of the platform-specific technology he talked about, but I do want you to focus on the weaknesses.
Okay, thank you.
What is there's 10? Yeah, there's 10, Candace. There's 10 weaknesses. That's a good question, Saba. I'm glad you asked it. Be sure you've watched the Salesforce one too, because Salesforce, that's pretty much the cutting edge of what we have with business intelligence now. So to the extent that you understand what they're capable of doing, that's what you can do with BI right now. Salesforce.com is in two big spaces. One is customer relationship management, and the other is data analytics. And by data analytics, I mean the type of data analytics that creates the business intelligence in the video. Does anybody have any more questions? Yes, I will. Geoffrey was asking, will all the grades be available before you sit for your exam on Saturday? And the answer is yes. So you'll know what you have to do to get the grade you're trying to get. So you can, needless to say, it goes without saying, Friday is going to be a very busy day for me. Thursday night and Friday is going to be a very busy day. So be sure you get everything in by 11:50 p.m. tonight. If you don't get it in by that, then there's degradations for being late. Most of my degradations start at 50% of the point value being gone. So as you go further and further from the deadline, it starts getting worse and worse. So please be on time. That's one of the reasons we have a somewhat shorter synchronous lecture today. So it gives you time to get your deliverables in. If that's all, we're going to sign off for the morning. If you have any questions, like always, feel free to text me. Everyone have a good day.